mostly easy to tell when your child is sick or hurting or not growing properly, but emotional or mental problems, those can be harder to spot. So we have a checklist of sorts to help you gauge if your child is mentally healthy. Joining me is child psychologist Dr. Adam Schwebach. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brooke.
We were saying in our show planning meeting that from a somewhat lighthearted approach, every preteen and teenager parent wonders at one point or the other, is my child stable? But are you asked this question a lot? Where does my child fall on the line?
Sure, yeah. I mean, parents ask me all the time, is this behavior normal? My child's doing this, like how normal is that? I think those are very reasonable questions, and sometimes it's hard to tell if this is really more of a mental health issue or just a typical behavioral problem.
Or just a personality, right? Every child is different. So how do you walk that line of normal? How do you assess if your child is quote unquote normal?
Well, I think a few things parents can look for. You know, number one is if children are saying things like, I hate my life, I don't want to live anymore, that's very problematic. We should never take those comments lightheartedly.
Right.
We should always explore that more deeply. If you notice that your child's having more trouble sleeping, they're either sleeping too much or they're not sleeping well enough, that can be a very big sign of a mental health or a behavioral issue. If you start to see more issues like they're crying more easily, they're just more emotional than what they used to be, they're not doing things like they normally would enjoy doing, those are some key indicators that there might be some issues that they're dealing with.
So you're looking from, health to just personal happiness kind of all around them to assess where they're at and how they've changed, perhaps, is fair. As we look at that list of behaviors then, how do you know if that behavior is a problem? Or you mentioned crying, for example, if I just have a hormonal preteen, daughter.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of the things that we look for is the chronicity of the behavior. If this is a chronic problem, it's been happening for a very long time, and you just see this happening every day, multiple times a day, crying or having behavioral issues a few times a week or a couple times a month, that's not a problem. But if this is a chronic issue that's happening on a daily basis, that's a problem. We need to look at that. You
say severity is a consideration as well. How do you measure that, though?
Severity, part of it is, everybody's judgment of severity is going to be slightly different. But, severity would be things, if you see your child throwing things across the room, punching holes in the wall, if they're getting very physically aggressive, that is not typical behavior for any child at any age.
At any age?
Yes. So, I mean, if they're destroying property and having excessive chronic behavioral issues that last for long periods of time, a tantrum that lasts for 45 minutes or an hour, that's problematic. That's where we start to get worried about that.
You want parents to pay close attention to how a problem impacts the day-to-day life, the day-to-day living of the child, of the family, of the home.
Yes, I mean, if parents will say things to me like, I can't take my child to the store because of the behavior, I can't leave the house or leave them with a babysitter because of the behavior. If the behavior is occurring in multiple settings, so you're getting phone calls from the school, if the teachers are talking to you about this behavior as a problem, that's an indication that we have more of an issue. So, if you start to say to yourself, I'm having problems on family vacations, or we can't even drive down the street, or this is really disrupting our family or our day-to-day life, that's an indication that that behavior goes beyond what would be typical for that age.
We hear a lot, we talk a lot about a mother's intuition. How much stock, how much weight do you put in as a psychologist to that mother's gut instinct?
Yeah, I think the mom's gut instinct or a parent's gut instinct is far better than any scientific research study that's out there. If you as a parent, if you're saying to yourself, I think this is a problem, I'm worried, I'm concerned, you should get some help. I think you need to listen to that intuition. You need to listen to that motherly instinct that you have. That parental instinct is very, very critical. And if you're starting to ask yourself those questions and get concerned, listen to that instinct, and we need to do something about it.
Even if that gut is driving you, Adam, I have to imagine there are parents out there that think, I don't want to label my kid, right? I take him into a psychologist's office, I have him evaluated. There's a little bit, I think, of apprehension about how early I should address the problem in hopes to not mentally set them up for something down the road. Speak to that a little bit if you could.
Sure, and I think that's a reasonable concern. I mean, there's always that stigma behind mental health. There's always that stigma behind behavioral issues. I would hope that most mental health professionals, especially at our office, we're not out there to find out if there's something wrong with your child. Our goal is not to find out or diagnose something per se. What we're really trying to do is see what we can do to better help the situation. And I would hope that most mental health professionals out there would be able to do that. If you go see somebody and you don't feel like you're connecting, then try another person until you find the person that's a good fit for you.
It's about the solutions that we're after, not necessarily the problem.
Yes.
And do you have a recommendation for parents when they do like a line that they should maybe consider picking up the phone, calling a professional like yourself? I mean, you've described the behaviors and the frequency pregnancy and whatnot, and that gut instinct goes a long way too.
A good place to start is always with your pediatrician or your general practitioner, especially if that person has had a good history with you and your child. So if that pediatrician's been able to see your child grow up and they know them and they know their history, that's a good place to start. And most pediatricians are well connected into the mental health realm. They'll know professionals out there that you can go see. So maybe starting with your pediatrician or an educator, school teacher who knows your child and has been around your child, that might be a good idea and a good place to start.
Really helpful information. Great conversation as well, Adam, to get it going, I think, at home. If people have more questions, how can they get in touch with you?
They can always check us out online. Our website is www.npcu.net, or they can also find me on Facebook if they need to.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.